go. So we're going to start straight into the article that Cyril sent us from The Guardian.
Let's do it. Yeah.
The title here is No CEO Should Earn 1,000 Times More Than a Regular Employee, written by Sarah Anderson here. I'm just going to read the first paragraph or two real quick. For the first time ever, U.S. corporations have begun reporting pay ratio data, and a movement is building to crack down on companies that don't share wealth. The CEO of Marathon Petroleum, Gary Heminger, took home an astonishing 935 times more pay than his typical employee in 2007. So it does link to the SEC site for where that report is, and actually specifically, it specifically says that Mr. Heminger's total annual compensation totaled $19,670,807, and the median employee total annual compensation is just over $21,000.
Damn.
So the specific ratio is in fact 935 to 1.
Sure.
Let's see here.
Did you say the median?
If I may,
21,000.
Median employee total annual compensation $21,034.
How?
If I may go ahead and start stirring the pot.
Go ahead.
Stir away, brother.
So for me, and this is why I brought minimum wage into it earlier this week. For me, we always hear if we raise minimum wage, what does it do? It passes that on to the consumer, right? If we raise minimum wage, the price gets passed on to the consumer. And look, I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just upset that it does when we look at numbers like these. I get upset that the only conversation that feels like that happens, and maybe I'm in my bubble, but it feels like the only really conversation in the public domain that happens is, if we raise minimum wage, the only way that we can mitigate that cost is by passing that price onto the consumer. Why? Why is that the case when we have companies that just make startling levels of profit? Why can't that profit go towards workers' pay? Why does it have to be that all of a sudden when we raise minimum wage, the buck gets passed on the consumer? That pisses me off, man. That just pisses me off.
But that's also the natural law of capitalism, right? Because you're not going to expect your shareholders to take the pinch for it. They would fight it.
Okay.
Right?
So
is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
and so my question
is,
how do we combat that? And I understand that a lot of people, dude, even I do a little bit. We chafe at more governmental control. But for me, what else can fix this? What else can fix this besides this is when I'm not trying to poo-poo free markets too much, but this is one of the negative things that can happen. Not all negative things happen from a free market, of course not. But this is one of the negative things that can happen. If they can make it so that, they make a whole bunch more than you, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, what I find interesting in the link that I should probably add to the...
I will, don't worry. I always add it in the comment section of the YouTube video. You're good. Go.
Perfect. Is actually beneath that, specifically where this article identifies, where it states the ratio median employee compensation. It actually has a section here called Our Ratio in Context. And this is where they actually try to make the argument of why it is the way it is. So do you mind if I read this? Because I feel like it might give us a little more context.
Is this not in the article itself? It's in a...
No, it's a link. So if you actually look at the article, the very first line, the 935 times is there's a link.
Okay.
So if you look at that, our ratio in context, we expect our ratio of 935 to 1 may be relatively high when compared to other domestic U.S. refiners. This expected difference is largely due to our substantial retail operations, more than 27,000 stores, staffed by approximately 3,200 employees, many of whom are part-time employees. So I think the argument they're trying to make there is, yes, it's low, but it's low because we have a lot of part-time employees. So they wouldn't be they're not working 40 hours a week.
So now I ask, why do you have so many part-time employees? What about your business? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying, what about your business needs?
I can give you a very specific example. Nikki, for example, worked because she no longer does, but worked at Fast Track.
Sure.
formerly Hess. Why did she work there? So that she could go to school at the same time. Because their hours are much more flexible. You can do part-time and go to school, not be expected to have to put in 40 hours a week. So that may be one example.
Okay.
Right? Not
So
saying
maybe
it's right
a better
or wrong.
ratio. Maybe a better ratio is to break it down by like as you would hourly wage, so to
I
speak.
agree.
That's probably a better way of looking at these numbers. Because that way you're not even considering like net take-home pay. You're just considering what 1 hour of the CEO's time is worth in terms of what he's getting paid versus
And
I
would say go ahead.
But if you keep going down on that ratio and context, there's a bunch more explaining blah 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 blah. In the interest of providing an additional disclosure that investors and other stakeholders may find meaningful, we have calculated an independent ratio for MPC only so that investors can compare Marathon Petroleum ratio to our industry peers. So they come up with another ratio. Not sure what it's based on specifically.
Oh my God. Medium employee total compensation is $125,000. What is that?
I wonder if they took out all the part-time employees.
No.
You're telling me that managers at these places make $125,000, full-time managers of some gas station? Sure.
I'm saying people who manage regions. I'm saying people who actually operate the operations portion, running trucks, building.
You need to have full-time employees at least one at every location. It doesn't make sense that you can.
That's not necessarily true. You can have one manager running several operations at the same time. And you also have to remember, this isn't. They don't just sell gas at the gas station. Like, I'm sure they do other things. They probably have a refining aspect. They probably have engineers that drill for, potentially drill for oil. Who knows what else that they do?
Let me challenge you on another front then.
Sure.
Fair. Let me challenge you on another front then. You brought up the instance of Nikki.
Yes.
What if someone did, regardless of why they ended up at a gas station when in their later in life, what if someone's not a college student? What if someone's, regardless of why they're there, maybe they messed up, fine, we can talk about that if you want, but regardless of why they're there, what if someone's just trying to work and they show up to work and that's all they can find as far as a job goes? Don't they deserve more than just this garbage?
So there's a couple of questions to be answered there, right? Because that's very. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong by any stretch of any imagination, but I'm also asking why. Why is it that they're in that position? Is it because of education or the lack thereof? Or is it? And I pose this question specifically to people who live in regions that have largely been ignored by economic booms, like a West Virginia, for example, who's so dependent on coal mines. Is it because you're not willing to move away from your family where work may be? Because I hear that a lot as well.
That's fair. That's why
which is difficult because you're being asked to leave your family behind in order to pursue economic gain. That's a tough choice to make. I'm not saying that fuck you should move. What I'm saying is that's very difficult and some people can't make that jump. It's also possible.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Look, I think when I read this, what I know is that Mr. Heminger doesn't need $19 million a year, even to live comfortably and well.
Sure. So no, I won't disagree with you there.
And I once again, I have to say this because I know I have tendencies myself. I do not believe in eradicating inequality. I think that's not feasible and stupid. So that's an important point
communism.
That's an important point to make before we move forward, because I'm not saying that there shouldn't be inequality. That's stupid. That just doesn't make sense. But there's got to be a way we can do better. There's got to be a way we can do better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know this doesn't help.
Sure.
But if you scroll down a little farther to the executive compensation, if you look at that table, right, all other compensation, it's over $500,000. You see that line?
All other compensation.
Yeah. In the 2017. Okay, if you scroll down a little farther, there's another table for all other compensation.
Yeah, I see.
They've added stuff like personal use of company aircraft. They've added security, like. I'm not saying that number isn't too large. What I am saying is that there is stuff in here that maybe we don't understand, right? Because truthfully, his yearly salary is just a little over $1.5 million. Now, where he makes the bulk of his money is stock awards, stock options, and a compensation incentive plan. That's the bulk of that money. And to me, that makes sense because it's the company or it's the shareholder saying, in order for you to make this kind of money,
sure,
you better be putting up some real numbers.
This is once again where I'll push back. Oh, go ahead, Chad. Go ahead.
I don't understand. What are you disputing there? What are you trying to say by pointing that out? That it's not all just cash money that he's getting.
Correct. What I'm saying is, what if instead of treating it as like, okay, at the end of the day, he made $19 million, because he did. There's no argument there. Why aren't lower level employees given the potential to earn things like stock awards, stock option awards, non-equity incentive plans?
That's where I was going to push back. They should.
Things like that. Well, I'm not saying they shouldn't. What I'm saying is if you break it out, what if, I'll use myself an example, right? My salary, let's say, is $40,000 a year, but I have the potential to earn $5,000 in stocks or another $3,000 in non-equity incentive plan compensation. Right. I wonder what that pay scale would look like if applied to your standard employee.
Absolutely.
Well, that'd be real interesting too, because now your employees have a vested interest on doing good by the company. You know what I mean? The company succeeds and you succeed because you own part of the company.
But and I would say this too. Am I saying that Gary R. Heminger shouldn't get this money? No. What I'm saying is Gary R. Heminger, it feels like he's hoarding a lot of the money that the company, not hoarding. That's terrible. He is making a lot, and Caleb said this just now. He is making a lot of money off stock awards and option awards, all this stuff. How much of that is the blood, sweat, and tears of your employees at the lowest level running these places? Putting hard, I don't want to, maybe, but anyways, putting hard work into these places. Why does he see all the benefit from that? That is garbage. Do not tell me that Gary R. Heminger wakes up and works harder than every one of those employees every day. That's just not true. And I'm not saying that he doesn't or does. I'm just, that at face value is ridiculous.
But also at the same time, let's also remember that. Let's use, for example, somebody that works at one of these stores for MPC, right? If there's a part-time employee that decides not to stock the shelves properly, how much impact does that poor decision make on the company as a whole, as opposed to Gary R. Heminger making a poor decision which impacts the bottom line, is a much larger consequence, and that's, right?
Sure.
So you should be, in my opinion, paid based on, right, the potential.
Yes,
how much responsibility you bear, right?
I agree.
You are the driver of the company. So we're not saying by any means that we should be, like you said, being paid exactly equal. Not by any means.
And this might not be a fair comparison, and tell me if it's not. But when we look at sporting leagues, especially let's look at the NBA. They, in their CBA, in their collective bargaining agreement, they split the profits 50-50. And it just doesn't feel like in these companies, these people at the bottom split the profit at all. The only amount of the profit they get is the little salary they get.
Well, it's a little different.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a little different too.
It could be.
Have what you have in these companies are 3 parties involved, not 2. In the NBA, you have your players and you have your owners.
Sure.
The towel boy doesn't get 50-50.
Sure.
In that, right? You're just talking about players and owners. Those are the only ones that have that contract. And in the corporate world, what you have is you have stockholders, then you have upper management, and then you have the rest of your employees. That agreement comes from the stockholders and the upper management, not the lower level employees. Just like in the NBA, it's not the water boy or the guy that mops the floor that gets a 50-50 partial in that profit sharing. It's just the players and the owners. So we do have to keep that into perspective.
Sure.
And I think that's maybe what you're saying. Maybe that's the argument. Maybe the towel boy should get some sort of share.
Yeah.
No matter how small it may be.
I mean, a livable wage.
That's.
Are you contesting? I don't understand. Are you contesting that this isn't an issue?
No, I'm saying it is an issue. I'm saying let's make sure we keep it in perspective, because we hear a lot from, and I'm going to say it, bleeding heart liberals, is that we should all be paid equally, or the
Ew, that's not what they
differential
say.
should be-
That's an exaggeration. That's communism.
That is actually communism.
Okay, however you want to spell it, but. And you're right. I shouldn't paint such a broad picture with such a small brush.
I don't even care that you do. I just don't think even a liberal isn't a communist.
I'm not saying
a communist is a communist.
I said a bleeding heart one, and a bleeding heart one is really a communist in disguise.
That's divisive. I will slap back on divisiveness there. You can't. Let's not do that.
Oh my god.
But continue.
All I'm saying is that if so, look at his salary, right? Let's put this into a different perspective, and we can actually calculate this if we wanted to. I don't know that anyone actually does, but
go ahead.
Let's say somebody is $50,000 salary. What do you think their equivalent stock awards option would be at $50,000? If this guy got 7 million, I'm going to make them round numbers. 1 million to 7 million, right? That's 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what would 7 times 50 be? 50K. 350K? Is that right?
Sure. Give them
that's what
then.
That's what their stock award option would be, right?
Sure.
Comparably, right? And then you can go right down the line. Option awards, non-incentive plan compensation.
No company in America is giving $350,000 of stock options to somebody making 50K.
Of course not.
Right.
But to your point and to Cyril's point, that does right. Why does he get that and nobody else?
Right.
Sure.
And I shouldn't say nobody else because we're looking at upper management. President, a senior president, another senior president, and the CEO.
So how do you address this then?
I don't know.
Because
that's tough.
Either you're going to have the government coming in and forcing businesses to start paying their employees certain types of money, or you have to just trust that the free market will do better by their workers.
Well, if you keep going down here, there's in the article itself, it talks about in Oregon, and the city of Portland has adopted what the economist Branko Milovic, I probably messed that up, I do apologize,
no worries,
has labeled the first tax that targets inequality as such. And they levy a 10% business tax surcharge on companies with top executives making over 100 times their median worker pay, and a 20% surcharge on pay gaps that stretch 250 times. My question would be, right? I'm not ready to say that's a bad idea.
I don't know if that's a good idea, though.
Yeah, I'm not ready to say it's a bad idea, but I'm also ready to say, okay, what are you going to do with that tax?
Right.
That's a real question.
Sure.
Are you going to use that tax to help educate people? Or
no, you know what?
You know what I mean? Like, what are we using that money for?
If they told me that we take that tax and we literally just split it amongst the workers of that company, sign me up. That's fine.
Well, no, I disagree.
Take that tax and they use that as revenue. This is where the hell they want. Well, no, hang on. It's tough. Sure.
Well, there's
and that's literally redistribution. So I understand that people.
It is literally redistribution.
Listen, I understand that is fine, but I want to hear from Caleb because he's pushing back a little bit here. Why can't they just tax that money from them and give it to the workers who, look, maybe they're not the CEO, but they do a lot to make that company run. Don't give me this.
Sure.
No, so why do you chafe at the idea of taking that tax and not running away with it and doing whatever the government wants? No, they shouldn't do that. Give it back to those workers.
Because you're de-incentivizing the company to actually do the right thing to begin with. Why the fuck would I go out of my way if I could
why did they fail to pay the workers in the first place?
It doesn't matter. If the surcharge is less, if the surcharge is less than the amount that they would have spent, fuck you, I'll make the government do it. They'll fuck it up anyway. My employees can be mad at the government, not me. You're de-incentivizing the company to actually do the right thing. That's where I would push back.
But you're de-incentivizing the company, but you're actually motivating its workers at its base if you give it back to them. It goes both ways there, man, and you know it does.
No, so you're right, it does. But
I'm cutting out the idea that government would take the money and do whatever it wants with it. I do not agree with that. That's trash. I'm saying give it back to those workers and explicitly tell those workers, we are now paying, you are getting paid more because you were getting robbed a little bit, and now it's a little better. Why would that not motivate the workers for that company? I don't care what the people at the top think. Maybe we should. Fine, we can talk about that, but that is motivating them.
But you do care about what the people at the top think, because at the end of the day, what you're fighting is the fact that they can spend their money to put somebody else in office, and that's part of the issue.
Right? Money out of politics. No, I know.
We do live in a quasi oligarchy.
We do. So you have to make sure that you're, to some degree, without rocking the boat too much, you're rocking the boat just enough.
I know. You're right.
And I feel like by doing it, the way you're suggesting, you're de-incentivizing the company to do the right thing to begin with.
I didn't suggest that. You said Oregon's doing that.
No.
I guess they're not paying back the workers. You're right.
Right. That's the part that you brought up.
Why would that de-incentivize the company when they're going to see morale go up from the workers from getting paid more? They're going to see what if they see growth from the company because people at the bottom are now happier, treating customers better, and they're growing the company just as much as the people at the top can. As much.
I would disagree with that.
Why?
Look at like
why would happy workers not grow the company as much?
But you're saying that it grows it like at a significant margin when what makes huge growth is driving a company towards a certain direction or vision. And that's not something that a low-level employee can do because they're not in a position to do that.
You are a retail company as a gas station. Your first line of what you look like as far as your employees are those people. Nobody meets with the CEO. Give me a break.
That's right. Okay, so if we're going to use this as an example,
yeah, sure.
What is the first thing as you pull into the gas station? What's the first thing you're thinking about? It's not the employee.
It's the price.
Yep.
Okay.
100%. And the employee is not responsible for the price.
Gobs of money.
Right, but you're making an argument that the increase in revenue or a happier employee is going to significantly, make your company that much more reputable.
If you want to,
and a lot of people would argue against it, and they would say, really, in this case, it's the gas price. If you can keep your gas price in a respective manner, people are going to come and use your services.
So we are going to say,
so you have to protect the worker then. You can't
yeah, correct.
I'm not saying you don't have to protect the worker. What I'm saying is that the argument that Cyril's putting forth isn't necessarily
well, look, and let me say this,
going to happen.
And I'll let you respond, Kate. Oh, go ahead, Chad. Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was going to say capitalism existed in this country a little over 100 years ago in a form that was entirely unacceptable, the way workers were being treated and the wages that they were receiving. Yep. And we had to step in and we had to do right by the workers. So to what extent should those protections be offered in this day and age? Because there are a lot of people that do not make a livable wage in this country. And that number grows daily.
I think that's true.
So
I agree.
I don't know, man.
So should we sacrifice everything at the altar of competitiveness, even if it means we have to treat our workers like absolute dog shit as far as their pay goes? Is it worth that?
So
can we build a society that's better than that? Can we do that?
Well, can I throw another wrench in the plans here?
Go ahead.
And although obviously child labor laws are very important, right? Working a 40-hour week, very important.
Sure.
But I think for us to really talk about this in capitalism is to talk about busting up some companies that are far too big.
Yes.
And as much as I hate talking about it in that manner, I think what's more important, what's going to help wages more than anything, is to have one internet provider or to have multiple. I'm sorry, scratch that. To have multiple internet providers to force a company to be competitive.
Yes.
Because when you force a company to be competitive, they're going to say, shit, not only do I have to shed weight, but I got to keep the people that are fucking worth keeping. And how do you keep people that are worth keeping? Give them a competitive wage, because they can go across the street to, and I'm going to use Rochester as an example, but if Frontier was a high-speed internet provider service, and if we had Verizon, there's two other companies that right, as a mid-level manager can say, well, they're going to pay me 10 grand more than you are, and good and goddamn well that I'm worth it.
And I think competition helps workers' rights. I do.
Right.
I think that's right.
So here's
but I don't think that's 100% the solution, Caleb.
No, but I think that's a part that a lot of people
does competition Does that guarantee better worker benefits?
It doesn't guarantee.
That's necessarily
we don't live in a
true.
world with guarantees, Chad. It definitely
It doesn't guarantee, but if I propose the argument that says,
I mean, you can.
if I have the ability to negotiate with my employer based on the fact that I could go somewhere else, right? Right now, if I go to Time Warner or Spectrum that I work for, and say I'm going to leave because you don't pay me enough, they're going to let me walk out the door.
So let's be devil's advocate, and I think Chad was about to do this. Because your employer is going to be real. Let's say your boss gets a call that they're looking for another job. How do you think that's going to go, Caleb? You tell me right now, honestly.
Best of luck to you, man. Hope you find a new job.
Okay, and sometimes that's not fair.
Well, Caleb's saying that that's the situation because there isn't competition.
Right, exactly.
No. Even if there was competition, you think your boss would be real?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Go look for another opportunity. We don't give a shit. Fuck no.
Also, I mean, to be fair, we're not talking about mid-level managers. We're talking about a majority of Americans who work jobs that are easily replaceable, to be honest.
Yeah, sure. You're right.
A lot of it is retail. Nobody's in retail going, I'm going to go to the Payless shoes because they're going to pay me better an hour.
Right. Retail's tough. Retail's a tough thing. And retail is a tough example. I always one of the largest. Well, I always default to my example. It is. I always default to my example though, working at the internet company because I can use my personal experience seeing it. What I also see though is that we have a structure at our company where you can move up just by taking courses and applying yourself. Right?
Sure.
Here's the course. We're paying for the course. All you have to do is take it, pass it, prove that you're capable of taking on maybe a couple additional responsibilities, which, if we're being honest, you're doing already. This is more or less just a formality to get you a raise, and people aren't doing
it. Sure.
So there's that other part, right? There's the other part where people literally don't want to advance for whatever reason they may or may not have.
So, and now let's talk about.
Well, they're clearly comfortable.
Let's talk about if someone is complacent, but they show up to work and they do their job. Maybe they don't do it the best out of everybody, but they show up and they work and they do what they're supposed to. Does that person now not deserve the right to be paid a fair wage just because they got complacent? I don't know that that's true. If it's a lazy person, if you can take your finger, because it goes case by case. If you can take your finger and point at a case that says, "Look at this," fine. But listen, if they're showing up and they're doing what they're supposed to do, even if they're doing the bare minimum, that means they're at least meeting what they're supposed to do, because you set the bare minimum as a company. They should not have to be raked over the coals for that. They should at least be able to get by, especially when I see these salaries that the CEOs make. That's what I'm saying. And don't tell me that all these CEOs work their ass off. I'm not saying they don't. There's a reason they're in the position they are. Maybe a lot of them do work hard, but some of them, that's not necessarily the case. They know someone, or they had an in, or they do this or do they that, and they go and they blow coke on the weekends, and they, don't tell me that every CEO is just more responsible and hardworking than every person under them. Not true. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, but you also can't tell me that every single CEO is a coke snorting fuckface.
No,
right?
No,
roughly 60%.
I would dare ask you where you get that number, sir.
Troll comment.
I run in circles, dude. I run in circles.
No, you don't.
Coke snorting fuckhead circles. I would advise you to stay away from those circles.
I think what I bring up is a big challenge. Like, what do we determine as hardworking, right? Like,
everyone uses this hardworking, but in the corporate world, it's not hardworking. It's results driven.
Sure.
And the truth is that some people have the ability to be lazy as fuck and still deliver results.
You know what? Yes, they do. That is true.
I wouldn't argue with that. Yeah.
And I think that's where that disconnect is. We keep, and I'm guilty of this too, we keep using this term hard work when really it's results.
Right.
That's what they give a shit about.
Sure. And we live in a capitalistic world, so yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think that's the tough part, in my opinion.
It is.
There's something
so as usual, we've come to a not really consensus, but kind of a consensus.
Just like
there's a problem here, but maybe going about it is different.
Right. We've all acknowledged the problem.
That's okay. I love this.
And I wonder if
I could say one more thing.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Chad.
I think there's something really profound to say about how a lot of the biggest employers in this country are corporations. And I feel like the takeover of corporations, where we kind of just see those mom and pop stores disappear, has kind of like deflated the average worker's spirit. Like when you work at a corporation, it feels like you're so disconnected from doing anything substantial. Like it's hard to find pride in your work. Things tend to get monotonous. Whereas I feel in smaller businesses, I mean, for example, I'll bring up Luigia's. That is the only job I've ever held that I actively enjoy and love being there, because
how connected are you to the owners?
The atmosphere is completely different. And I know that if I have something to say, if I have a grievance, like my voice is heard. They respect my opinion,
and that's worth a lot to you.
Whereas at Harris, yeah, absolutely. Whereas at Harris, you feel so disconnected from like any impact your work is having. Everybody's like a cutthroat culture with the office politics. Like it's so deflating.
And if I may,
don't take pride in that kind of work. It's hard to.
Let me use my example. The job I had before the one I have now is at a Rite Aid. All right.
Yeah.
Coming from a Rite Aid to a small local bank that has 12 to 13 employees when I joined was night and day.
It's insane.
Also, if I may say, a lot of millennials, quote unquote, or people that are younger in our age, I guarantee each one of you heard this. Complaints about what's called corporate. Oh, it's just corporate. That's how corporate works. Like corporate. Everybody's heard that, and that is bureaucratic. There is not. It's not 100% true, or this or that, but there is truth to it. Okay,
no, definitely.
And I have seen it firsthand, and it sounds like, Chad, you have seen it firsthand too.
Oh God.
And
I saw
this
that.
This is what we talk about when we talk about. Yeah. What's that?
I saw that at Friendly's, which is not a place you would expect to hear. Oh, that's corporate. Right. That's corporate standards a lot. But I heard it every time I worked there.
And this is the overall point I'll make, and I'll let you guys smack back if you want. I think that when we talk about corporations, yes, some people will chafe at the idea of regulations and government stepping in. But when we talk about corporations, there's serious disconnect there, and they're not fixing it themselves. And I'm sorry, fuck off. And the only way that I see that you can fix this, tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if you can think of another way, is there has to be some entity stepping in and saying, listen, we see that this isn't working the way that old mom and pop shops and business used to work back in the day, and we need to do something about it. Because if we don't, this is just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse.
It's interesting, though, because the people that would yell at you for stepping in to try and manage these corporations are the people who would say, free market, don't interfere. But corporations always end up becoming anti-capitalistic.
Correct.
Because you get these huge conglomerate type businesses, and they start influencing politics to have some legislation sway their way. You get more conglomerates and more people conglomerating, and all of a sudden there's no competition anymore. And you have a few businesses that are completely running industries. That is not.
And then what happens at the top?
That's not capitalism.
What happens at the top when they hear about more competition or breaking them up? They chafe at it and they spend money to not do that.
Exactly.
And it corrodes workers.
I'll use telecoms.
Bad capitalism.
I'll use
correct crony capitalism.
Well, exactly.
This is how you get a Jeet pie. Net neutrality. This is how it works. This is the prime example, and I hate to use the examples that I'm so close to, but it's too easy.
No, that's fair. Go ahead.
Right? And I think the difficulty in what you guys are talking about, and I think what I chafe at specifically, and I know sometimes you guys go, but it's the personal responsibility piece. I've gotten to myself to the point where I am now that first line manager, supervisor, right? Mm-hmm. So I see what comes down for real, and I see what complaints come up from the employees. And a lot of the times what I see is people just accepting the fate, and you can't.
But how much? But Caleb, what Chad just said for the last 10 minutes, how much of that? Sure, is there some personal responsibility there? Yes. How much of that is setting up a culture where you basically tell these workers to go fuck themselves?
But I'm not doing that.
That's a two-way street. Listen, I don't care if you are.
Right. And I'm not doing it.
I don't care if you're not. You're one person in Spectrum. That's a huge.
Guess what?
Here's.
Guess what? That's why my people are happy. Know their department.
And
that's why people want to come work for me. That's why I get the best fucking employees.
And I get that, but you can't act like there's 100 Calebs out there to make Spectrum perfect from top to bottom. There isn't, and so we need to find a different solution.
You're absolutely right, but I think that part of the solution, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, is that one Caleb saying you guys are fucked up. Change it. By leading the way, by being the example for all of the supervisors you're looking at. What?
You're telling me you're going to change Spectrum?
You're fucking goddamn right I am.
Look, I'm not trying to poo-poo you. I'm just saying that's
not
realistic.
It is realistic.
No, it's not.
You're running for office as an independent party.
Sure.
I wouldn't sit here and tell you that that's not realistic for you to win.
No, of course not. Look, I'm not trying to poo-poo you, Caleb. I'm just saying.
I'm merely
it smells of poo-poo, though.
Yeah, the idea that you can change this whole corporate culture from top to bottom, you sitting from where you are in Rochester, is not right. That's not realistic.
That's the thing, and that's what you're missing, is I'm not going to be in Rochester forever. I'm going to move up the corporate ladder, and I'm going to move up the corporate ladder because people want to work for me, and people will work harder for me than they will for anyone else.
And I think that if you get to the top of that company and you make not even you make, if you get to the top of that country, I believe you would make major change, and I think you would do right by your workers. But that's not what happens in every scenario, and I'm sick and tired of acting like there's a bunch of you out there that can do that. We need to find a different solution. It's not working.
But it does help when you have one who tries
to
indirectly peer pressure others to lead, to follow your example.
I guess
you have to have that too. Just like you have to have true capitalism, just like you have to have some oversight as to in wage fairness. You have to have, and I think that's where I'm getting to with everything that we talk about. We're all right, and the reason why we're all right is because you need every piece of that puzzle to get in that right direction.
Right.
And that's what I enjoy about these talks, is because I get a perspective from you guys that I don't normally think about.
I do hate the attitude these days of how, I mean, you talk pro-life, pro-choice. There are so many people that are 100%, not that particular topic, obviously, but people are usually 100% one way or the other, where it's never that cut and dry. It's never that black and white. It's a lazy way of thinking about these really complex issues.
Sure.
100%.
Like, you can be somebody that's
mentality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. And people want to be part of the conversation, but they don't want, they certainly don't want their challenges, like their beliefs challenged. They don't want that. And B, it's just easier to pick a side and not really think too hard about these issues, and then start beating your chest and blowing your trumpets.
Well, you know what I hate is when people pick a side based on their perceived morality. That burns me more than anyone, than any other type of person.
Than their perceived morality?
Their own, right.
Oh.
What is morally correct.
And the first thing that statement makes me think of is the reason why it works when we talk is we're not that way, and we have to be careful with who we let talk with us, because a lot of people can be that way. If we invite someone to talk with us that is just like that, it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
I think it does help. I think it helps when you have people who are conscious of what it is that they're trying to articulate against someone who's just being blatantly ridiculous. It does help, because then when people hear that, they go, wait a minute.
That's true. They can be in perspective.
Sure. Right. Something sounds like shit here. Because when all you do is listen to three people that agree all the time, it's easy to think, everyone's all right. Yep. They are all correct. There is no argument here. You guys are all perfect.
Everyone has their echo chamber because they don't want to think too hard about these things. They don't actually want their beliefs challenged. And that is such a cop-out way to live your life.
It's just like for me, right? My biggest belief when we're talking about this pay wage is that you're in control of your own destiny, when the truth is that's not always the case.
No.
Right? I always have to remind myself that there are people in positions that I wouldn't even be able to get myself out of, no matter how hard I worked. Just wouldn't happen. And I lose that perspective from time to time.
Well, someone like us three, I don't know that I believe that. And I constantly struggle with what makes, because when I go to work every day, Caleb, it sounds like we think of it. We're seeing the same thing. We're thinking the same thing, because I just, and look, I'm not trying to sit on a high horse, but there's something about my competency level, my getting along level, that just isn't what other people have. And it fascinates me as to why, why other people don't have that.
But that's my point, sir. Hold on. If you didn't have that, If you didn't have that, could you say the same thing about yourself? That I can pretty much do anything. No, you can't say that because other people can't do what you can do. And that's my point. Right. I have to remind myself that not everyone can do what I can do, and I can't do what other people can do.
But I also, along with that,
Chad, I put that caveat in there.
I saw that. Yeah.
I also, along with that, I also look. Do I know that I'm more competent and can do more than others? Yes. Wow. Do I think that's because I work harder? Not all the time, man. Right. I don't know that it's hard work.
Yeah, dude, you were born with that.
2 hours. Can you stop, Chad? There are some things that take people 2 hours. It takes me 5 minutes. Why is that? Do I think that's hard work? A lot of the times it's not. It just is what it is, and that doesn't seem. I don't want to say it doesn't seem fair. It just feels weird, right?
But
like, why is it
never going to be truly equal, right? That's why the whole idea of communism is ridiculous, because no one is ever equal.
It is. You're right.
But at the same time, may I flip this on your head real quick before we move on to our next topic?
Go ahead.
What if that's what these CEOs sometimes think? It's not that I work hard. It's just that I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, but look, if it's not hard work, then don't. If it's not hard work, then don't come at me with the argument that I got here because of hard work. Maybe you got there because you got lucky and your genetics are great. Maybe Randall Dunham gave us great genetics. Is that fair to everybody else to just get thrown under the bus? I don't know that's true.
Hey, fuck fair.
Is it fair to everyone else that everyone doesn't have Randall Dunham as their father? I
don't want to use the word fair. You're not wrong, Caleb. It's not the right word to use. But what I'm saying is, like, do people deserve to get more screwed than me? Even when sometimes they work harder dude, I readily admit some people at work harder than me, but they're just not competent, so it just doesn't produce results. And so is it fair that I can produce results by lifting one finger and other people can't by lifting all 10?
That's where you're going wrong, Cyril.
Sure.
Because for me, I'm in the same boat, but I still work hard so that my results are magnified by 1,000.
Yes, and so are mine. And don't get me wrong, I'm setting myself up to get a nice payday when I graduate from this bank. But and look, as much as I'm a bleeding heart, I still work my butt off, and it blah blah blah. It feels like we can do better, is what I'm saying. It just feels like we can do a lot better. We need to come. When I hang out with Tim West, Tim's a different kind of guy. Tim isn't going to be able to go to some bank, work hard, and make that happen. Like, Tim is the kind of person who's salt of the earth, who will give you hard work, but he won't necessarily have the competency or the intelligence in those areas that you need to really be a results producer. Caleb, you made a great point earlier. It's all about results. And I don't think that when you emphasize results, I don't know that that's as equal as it should be as far as work put in. I don't think so. And that's a problem.
Because it should just at the very least meet a standard. There should at least be a bottom standard.
There should be. I hired you and asked you to do this. Okay. And if you're meeting that standard, you should have a livable wage. Nobody's asking for everyone to have the same wage. That's stupid.
No, obviously.
We shouldn't be putting people in poverty. We shouldn't be, I don't know. We can do better. I'm
not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying, I think my end point here is that it's only due to a combination of several things will we achieve our result. And I think that combination includes keeping in mind a CEO differential wage, keeping in mind that true capitalism is real competition, not the bullshit that we have now.
Sure.
As well as, some self-responsibility for some people. Yeah. I think a nice mesh of that will produce a more desired result. I don't think we'll ever get to that perfect but it'll be more desirable.
One of the last things I'll say is we live in a day and age where it feels like everybody makes it cut and dry, and so we get nowhere, right? And that's what I don't like.
Everyone's arguing about
the one side will say competition alone will make things better, and then the other side says, well, oversight and controlling alone will make. And it's just like, are you stupid? Stupid?
Well, the truth is too, to those examples is number one, we don't have competition really in a lot of industries.
We don't.
And number two,
we don't have fairness.
is we don't even have oversight.
We don't.
The only oversight we have is minimum wage.
Right. And
40-hour work week.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's more laws.
There's more. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's
fascinating.
Anyway,
it's fascinating.
We'll agree to disagree there as usual.
As usual.
Look, I'll say one more thing because you said that. I don't know that we agree to disagree. I think that if me, you, and Chad sat in a room with our ideas, because we always admit, and we like to do this because it's right. We always admit we're not experts, right? Of course we're not.
No.
We're just espousing opinion, what we gut feeling or common sense or competency feel. And if we sat in a room with people that maybe didn't have these gut feelings, but they had the numbers that were crunched and they had the expertise, if we can combine that, we can come out with an agreement. I don't know that we have to agree to disagree. If we can get the right people in a room, which is why you guys should run for office, we can get the right people in the room, inviting the right expertise in there. I think that there is something that can be done. And that's what frustrates me about government. So that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, but when it comes to government today, right, with what Chad was saying earlier, right, it's all tribal. We need to get away from that tribal mentality.
Yeah, we need
them all the time, and it's not okay.
Right.
What's best for my constituents?
This country is in some kind of way right now, and we are not going to. So people stop treating each other like they're monsters. The amount of dehumanizing that people do just because somebody supports Trump or somebody supported Clinton, you get those two people in a room and they won't look at each other like they're human beings.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy how much people just.
If someone tells me that they're a Trump fan and they voted for Trump, I don't.
Let's have a conversation.
As Caleb likes to say, I'm a bleeding heart. I don't know about bleeding heart, but yeah, I do lean a certain way. And as a person who leans a certain way, my first thought isn't you're dumb or like that's wrong. My first thought is why. Just tell me why, man. That's all.
Let's have a conversation.
Correct. That is always my first thought.
People can't always. People won't do it, I suppose.
Dude, if someone's a communist too, I'll be like, why? You tell me why, So, yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next one. I've got an article here. Shitty thing to say.
What do you mean, man?
From the BBC, March 17th, headline is Russia spy poisoning.
Oh, God.
23 UK diplomats expelled from Moscow. Now, this is actually the response to the 23 that were expelled from the UK. I'll read this here. Russia is to expel 23 British diplomats in a row over the nerve agent attack on an ex-spy and his daughter in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Did they live, by the way?
No, they're dead.
They were in hospital for a while.
I thought they were dead.
No. They were in hospital.
According to this article, again, this is the 17th.
Last I heard, they were fighting for
Paul and his daughter Yulia remain critically ill in hospital.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I guess they're not dead yet. I thought they died. I apologize.
Critically ill stuff, though, too.
But what I want to get to...
It was a nerve agent. It was a nerve agent.
Right.
That is...
Right.
Go ahead.
Talking about this article specifically is the historical context here and where this potentially could be driving the world, right? Because if you ask paranoid people such as myself from time to time, a little bit.
Me too, man. Go ahead.
Right? This has the feelings of you shot von Bismarck. Isn't that the one for World War I? Who was that one?
Sure.
History.
Bismarck was Prussian, some sort of deal.
Yeah,
right, wasn't he
the guy that trained the American
set off World War I
revolutionary.
Wasn't he the one that assassinated?
Are you talking about the guy that died right before World War I?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Otto von Bismarck. No, he's right. He's right.
What?
Otto von Bismarck. He was shot.
Franz Ferdinand.
Oops,
Otto von Bismarck.
I thought Franz killed Ottoman. Or Otto von Bismarck.
Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He was assassinated.
Yeah, it was Otto von Bismarck was just some Prussian guy who lived before.
Fuck. My bad.
Yeah, he was like a Prussian leader or something.
The point still stands.
Right, either way, right? Someone was killed, and now we're all going to go to war. And I'm not saying by any stretch that these two are the reason why anyone goes to war, but I get that feeling from Russia that, like, and they're getting extremely defensive, and in their defense to some degree, rightly so. I don't know if it's self-inflicted, but at the same time, what I would pose the question to you, and I posed it to Cyril earlier, is does it feel like the powers that be, right, France, Germany, the UK, and the United States, are they pigeonholing? Are we pigeonholing Russia and forcing them to
what?
be the way they are right now?
How would we
do that?
Oh.
Caleb, and I just want to, Caleb, before you go, I'll say this one thing. There was a serious challenger to Putin today. His name was Alexei Navalny. They literally banned him from running in the election. That's what you're defending. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm not saying I'm defending it. What I'm trying to bring up.
Go ahead.
I'm not bringing up devil. No, I'm not. I'm really not. What I'm saying is this the proper way to go about trying to challenge Russia? Like, is this really the best way by just sanctioning the shit out of them?
If you're the UK,
talking about the sanctions,
sure.
Why would they nerve agent poison?
Why?
A ex-spy if they were concerned about.
I don't know.
That's not
especially if he was a nobody.
That's like me moving my first pawn and then they just shit on the chessboard. Like there's no strategy there. And it's very odd that they're almost acting with impunity here because I think they probably think correctly that the UK is not going to do anything but just
of course they're not.
Expel those diplomats and increase the sanctions. That's all that's going to happen.
Right.
But you can't do shit. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, Jesus.
So, and Caleb, before you keep going, what Chad just said matters in this day and age. We don't live in World War I, man. We don't, and we don't kill each other. I read an article, and I need to reference this. I'm not gonna lie, and I will. Let me look it up right after I say it. I read something where this was the first time this nerve agent had been used since World War I.
Ironically, right?
Why would you do? That's fair. But why would you do that? Like,
and they also
why is the UK not allowed to be upset about an attack on their soil?
No. They absolutely are.
They are. Well, they're allowed to be. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is okay. You're learning that Russian, specifically, right? Vladimir Putin is becoming much more aggressive. I feel like in the way he's operating, not just the country, but his relations with everyone else, right? He annexed Crimea. He's provoking war in the Ukraine. He killed an ex-double agent in the UK with a nerve agent not used since World War I.
Sure.
And he banned his only opposition. Well, I shouldn't say only, but his primary opposition.
It was.
Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, before that, did he not jail another opponent?
He murdered an opponent a couple years ago.
Well,
allegedly. Sorry. Allegedly. No, he's right. It is important to say that. Allegedly, he murdered
and all of these, to me, are signs of a very potentially oppressive regime kicking into full gear. And if history has told us anything, sanctioning the shit out of people and being this aggressive against them ultimately just ends up in war. Is there any other way? What I'm saying.
What do you mean
other way to avoid this confrontation?
What do you mean by that? Because I would argue that there have been, and let's use the extreme example of Hitler and the Nazis. They appeased them. They didn't sanction them. They appeased them, and they still led them down a path of war. So what do you mean by that?
So are we just doomed then to humans particular individuals coming to power and just being shitbags? This is going to happen time and time again?
I would say, yeah. I would say this. I would say the internet and communication's a game changer, but we can't necessarily deal with it just yet.
It's a game changer when you can have another country potentially influence an election because of it.
Sure. That's very relevant. but I think until we can, and I don't know how we get our shit together on it, until we can get our shit together on dealing with misinformation and how we can be also connected. Once we get there, we can do better. But until we get there, it'll be the same shit over and over again. It always has been. And do I know why? I really don't.
Because humans are pieces of shit.
I would agree with that.
Can
like,
be.
ultimately. Well, true, very true.
Wow.
Thank you, Chad.
Ultimately.
Right.
Well, if that weren't the case,
I mean, humans.
I don't think that the George W. Bushes of the world are pieces of shit. So I don't know that
I'm also
everybody.
not entirely convinced that it was just George W. Bush being the piece of shit.
No, of course not.
Where you at, Dick Cheney?
Dick Cheney was terrible. No, Dick Cheney was terrible. I miss W. I don't miss Cheney. But anyways, yeah, I don't. And Caleb, you brought up a good point before Chad jumped on.
Ultimately,
or actually, I think Chad was listening before. You brought up a good point earlier of, where does this lead us? What path are we going down? And I'm not sure.
Feels like the path of war, my friends.
No.
Why not, Chad?
Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
People in this day and age, I feel like it would take a lot. It would take a lot for war, actual full-out war to break out.
And I think, and I'm not willing to debate this because we could, and I think that the U.S. regime right now is weirdly not in cahoots with Russia, but there is something weird about that relationship. So I don't know that there's going to be war. I think Trump would drag his feet into a war with Russia. I don't know that would happen.
It wouldn't happen.
I don't think he would do it at all. Hold on.
Sure.
I don't think he would do it at all. But mind you, in my very humble opinion, I believe that this president only has less than 3 years left anyway.
Wow.
And if I'm speaking strategically,
yeah,
as Putin, if I know that, why would I? If I know that he's not going to do it, why would I spend my time and effort trying to do it against this particular president when I can continue to encroach on places like, right, Crimea, Ukraine, things of that nature? I can spend this time advancing slowly and not just declaring an all-out war of any sort, if, in fact, that is his motive.
I think that, and straight up opinion, because how can we know what Putin's thinking? But I think that Putin likes the fact that Trump's there, and Putin's going to fight to keep Trump there. I think when I see that before Tillerson got fired, what did he do? He criticized that attack. Boom, next day fired. Congress passes Russian sanctions between the House of Representatives and the Senate, like 500 and something to 2.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't sign it. Okay. There are a lot of weird things.
Why did he not sign that?
Every single intelligence agency that has tremendous power, I've been a part of it, they can figure things out. I'm not saying they're right 100% of the time, but a lot of the time they are. When they say that Russians hacked our election, they actually did do something. They not leave the Trump collusion part out of it. I don't even necessarily believe that yet. I don't. But Russians definitely influence our elections, and this administration denies it.
Yeah,
explicitly.
I mean, to be fair,
that is weird. Sure.
To be fair, I don't think that they had a huge influence in the election, but the fact that Russia's trying to mess with our democracy, like that's
they meddled. So I would push back on the fact that Putin's planning on someone else being in power. I think he wants Trump to stay in power.
Sure, but let's be honest here.
How do we move?
Even with any level of meddling, right? What's I'm not wrong last time, but what's the likelihood of him staying in office?
I'm not here to say Hillary should have won.
And we can also assume,
sure,
because let's be honest, Putin is an intelligent person. If you say otherwise, I think you're the dumbass.
Nope, he's brilliant.
He's also planning, okay, if Trump gets into office, A. If not, plan B. Right? What do you imagine plan B is?
I think that...
Sure, I think he would have a plan B. You're right. I got you. Go ahead, Chad.
No, I disagree. That I think plan
A
was... I think plan A succeeded. I mean, yeah, maybe they...
There's always another plan A. There's always another plan B.
Maybe they really wanted Trump into office, but I think what Russia really was trying to do was social engineer us to the point where our people can't function in the democracy anymore. I mean, the rhetoric has gotten so bad between like just people that know each other on Facebook. Like, you know what I mean? It's these weird interactions. I think they succeeded in the sense that they just wanted to sow division in our country, and they succeeded.
So let me put my tinfoil hat on with the CIA, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we try to do the same to them?
I don't understand what you mean by that.
potentially meddle in their election? Why don't we?
No, nobody should
create
be
this
election
information?
meddling.
So
Nobody should be
Yeah.
fucking with anyone else's democracy.
That's what I would
and-
say too.
What if-
America. I
Would
mean,
you
we
say
don't
the
have
same
our
thing about
hands-
China, who pretty much doesn't have a democracy anymore? Like what?
So
You
so
can't-
this goes
I am a
back
firm
to,
believer
and
in-
I'm not an isolationist, but this goes back to like, listen, let people. You can't just
Yeah.
go and tell people
I-
what to do.
I agree.
I'm worried about
Listen,
America
when it
and
comes to the
Americans.
Well, shit, that
I
has
agree.
to do with America and Americans potentially.
And if it does, I'm open to that conversation, but I don't know that it goes as far as maybe you're
This-
insinuating. So
The sovereignty of a country has to be let just to its own
I think
people.
if
You
we're
should
getting
not
directly
be-
attacked because of these things happening, sure, let's push back. But
Then
if we're afraid of things that might happen because of how things are going, that's not our business, man. So
But the problem is, and I can see this argument, is that it quickly turns into our business when it does
And if-
affect us.
and if it does, then
And
let's
it's
do
so
something.
fast
Mhm.
that it's not likely that us doing something at that point would even be impactful. Like now we're already in a war potentially.
That's
I shouldn't say potentially and in a
Look,
war at the same time,
that's
but
fair.
you
but
get
you're
what I'm saying.
So you're
fair.
encouraging
So then-
you're encouraging doing the same thing back to Russia.
I'm asking why wouldn't we? And
Because
you guys
that's
are giving me those
such a
points.
dangerous
And-
game to play.
I get
We
that,
did
but you're
do
giving me
that.
those points.
And we
I hear
unseated.
you.
What was it? Was it the Iran coup in the 50s that the CIA was pulling
70s,
strings
but yes.
on their leadership? And we're aware of this
And-
now
and-
because this has come out.
And where
They've
I would push
acknowledged it.
where I would push back on Caleb too is, dude, I believe in America as far as like we are the greatest country in the world. Why are we the greatest country in the world? Because we push morals and values that are good, not shitty. We shouldn't be out there doing the same thing that the shittiest countries are doing. Inappropriate. That doesn't lead this planet and this world in the right way. We have been the standard bearer of democracy and human rights and doing the right thing and freedoms as far as people and their freedoms for a long time. And once we start to do that, we're no better than Russia. And also, if you play games with Russia, they're not America. We honor people's sovereignty. We honor their freedom. We
Wow.
encourage them to have freedom. When you mess with
On paper.
Russia, on paper, shut
On
up.
paper.
When you mess with Russia, oh, that's fair. I shouldn't say shut up. But when you mess with Russia in the same way they mess with you, they'll actually go forward with that. Okay? And that is dangerous. That
It's
is
just a
extremely
bad game to
dangerous.
play. And here's the thing, right?
Super bad game to play.
Here's the
So
thing.
then,
You can
what's
start-
the game? What
the
do you do?
game is to let the people of Russia
Correct.
take back their
Go
own
to
country.
war with you?
What? No. I mean, everybody wants to complain about Putin rigging this election, and to some extent, it's very obvious he did. But there are a lot of opinion polls that come out of Russia. People love Putin. The people of Russia love Putin. It is up to them to deal with their Putin issues. It is up to them to deal with the
Right.
sovereignty of their own country and their own government.
True.
That is not our responsibility.
want-
And
You wanna sow
meddling,
resentment. Right.
yeah, well, meddling is just going to
You-
sow resentment towards Americans rather than the conversation that they need to be having with themselves and their government.
Yep. I agree. That's where I'm at. And I don't know that playing the same game Russia plays will end the same way Russia got with us. It won't.
No.
It'll be bad. You're toying with a regime that isn't so good to other people, that doesn't respect the freedoms of other countries, doesn't respect the sovereignty of the other countries, and that's the point of the UK attack. They didn't respect the fact that the UK is its own country. Leave them alone. Don't enter their borders and attack any one person, because if you attack one person in their borders, that's an attack on their sovereignty and that whole country. Period.
No,
And that's a
that's a valid point.
Yeah. And I don't know that we should be playing that game, man. I wouldn't.
I'm not saying we should. This is
Yeah.
my,
Sure, of course.
my
I know.
persona of a tinfoil hat coming out. And this is
Oh,
my
sure,
thought
yeah.
process of what the CIA might do.
Sure.
Man.
And when Caleb says that, he's not almost wrong. Or I don't want to say something, but he's not wrong in the sense that like maybe the CIA already is playing that game back. I hope they're
I
not,
was going to
but they
say, I
could
was
be.
just going to say that. We don't know. They could be doing
We don't
that.
know.
I don't think they
That's-
should be doing
That's
that.
why I
but-
pose these questions, because
very
the
well
reality is that, hey, this is, as a country, we're pretty good at fucking up meddling.
And by the way,
Well,
Trump's
yeah, we have a
new-
history of it.
That's my point. So what
Yeah.
makes you
Trump's-
think we're going to stop now?
Trump's pick of the CIA matters because of this, and his new pick ran apparently secret waterboarding sites and secret torture sites back in the Iraq War early on in 0304. And so if she's willing to do stuff like that, maybe she is willing to hit back. And I don't know that's the right idea. So
well, she won't be if what you're saying, right, about Trump being cozy with Russia, like he will have her on a tight leash.
He will.
You're not going to do that shit.
Yeah, and that's fair.
This is my homeboy,
yep.
Putin.
Oh man.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. And that's why, and I know, and by the way, just let me say this for 2 minutes, Caleb. If you want me to jump back off it because you don't like it, that's fine. That's why what happened with Andrew McCabe this weekend matters, right? When and especially what happens with Comey matters. When you have someone who's investigating that connection and you straight fire them, or when you have someone who you didn't like because of where they worked or whatever they were doing with the Russian investigation, and you fire them, and then you come out on Twitter and you straight blast them like he did, it just adds to like, what is going on? What is going on? What is our relationship with Russia as far as this administration?
I know.
Like, nobody knows. It's in the dark. And
at
best, it's really weird. That's at best. that is something that matters to this conversation.
Well, I was kind of the opinion that while the people around Trump may have had these weird Russian relationship and ties, I wasn't convinced that Trump himself was trying to collude with Russians. Right. But the fact that he didn't sign those sanctions that was almost unanimously passed by both houses of Congress really sheds some confusing light. Like, why? Right. Why did you not sign that? What was the thought process there?
All right.
I mean, did he comment on that, or was that kind of just shoved under the table and we moved on? Did he talk about that? Was he asked about it?
We talked about it.
I'll try to Google it.
But that's so strange.
But maybe he's thinking, this is how I prevent war. Don't sanction the shit out of them.
Because and Caleb's not wrong when he says that, because we just talked about how like you can't play the same tactics with Russia. So do I love the idea of appeasement? No, but I mean, look, these things are sensitive, man. They are.
Yeah, but considering all the stuff that's going on with Trump and his campaign in Russia, to me, it suggests something else.
Right.
You know what I mean? But no.
But I would also say
that's what 2 + 2 equals, I think, 4. Right.
I would also say this is a Congress and a lot of Congress people that are sitting in these chairs right now that also voted to go to war in Afghanistan and Iraq.
They didn't, though.
Huh?
Well, after the fact,
what do you talk?
After the fact, they did.
Oh yeah, sure.
We went to war first. It was actually considered a conflict for that very reason, because we didn't ask
what
Congress
I'm saying
first.
Is, though, at the end of the day, that regardless of whatever the case may be, right? Technically, it wasn't a war, but they sanctioned doing what we did. Yes.
Yeah, but
indirectly,
directly, it's one thing. You know, Somalia is one thing, whereas Russia is a whole nother thing.
Right.
We're not going to war.
But why is it then that Congress is never unified on anything?
And it shouldn't be.
Why are they so unified on this?
Because Russia was with our democracy, dude.
That's that's
fundamentally.
Yeah, that's weak.
It's weak.
Sure.
Well, what do you mean? I'm talking from.
I see it as I see it as this. The fact that Congress came to such a unanimous conclusion means to me the opposite. It means like this is some bullshit, and almost even partisanship doesn't see through that. This is some bullshit,
considering how divided and conflicted that Congress is, the fact that they agreed. Well, besides two abstained or some bullshit like that. Like that's.
I feel like Caleb, that's a super tinfoil, man. That's a conspiracy that's crosses partisanship. What crosses partisanship here? Almost nothing, man. That's tinfoil, is to me at least.
Yeah, so, I mean, all I try to do, even though it can be tinfoily, is just think, what is the likelihood that it's something else? What is the likelihood? Because you guys are saying, well, the reason why we're so unified of it is because it's ridiculous. But what if it is another reason?
I don't know that we're saying it has to be this way. We're saying just add 2 + 2 And I think that there's a lot.
Not everyone's 2 + 2 equals your plus 2 + 2, bud.
Dude. If Congress can agree on it over partisanship, most people can, man. This is a weak argument.
What I'm saying though is, what if it is that Trump, right?
Mhm.
If let's go off the assumption that he is colluding to some degree, or at least talks to Putin somehow. Right, and I'm with you, but I agree with you. But let's just play this game.
Sure.
What if he is somehow communicating with Putin, and Putin is saying like, "Yo, you better fucking step off, or I will slam your dick in." But do you honestly think that Trump is the type of person to be like, "No, fuck you, I'm gonna slam your dick in"?
I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I don't know how to answer.
I mean, what if he didn't sign the sanctions
entirely
because he's saying like, I don't really want to go to war with Putin, or I don't want to have a conflict with Putin?
Why would you?
He would much rather shit on China, right?
Okay, we can talk about why that is, and it might be Caleb. You're the one that calls him. You don't like talking about Trump because you already know he's an idiot. You don't want to have the conversation. So if we start with that, maybe he's. And look, I'm willing to say that Trump overshares on Twitter, so we all kind of know how he is, not everything about him, but how he is. Maybe Putin has been nice to him over the years, and they made business deals, and because of that, he just gives him preference. It could be
It absolutely
fucking
could be
simple.
Or
I assume it probably is. I don't think Trump's not the type. Again, I'm still not entirely convinced that Donald Trump is in Putin's pocket. I just think
I'm not either.
Around
not in his
Trump
pocket.
Are in
not in his
pocket.
What I'm saying is, what's the potential that he has conversations with Putin?
I don't
Putin
think
is helping to advise him.
I don't give Trump that much credit for being able to wheel and deal like that.
I'm not interested
really
in what my actual opinion is. I have an opinion on that. I'm not actually interested in that. I'm just interested in what does this all add up to?
Yeah.
Of course, it doesn't add up to anything permanent or anything that has to be like, this is the way it is. No, it doesn't. But man, we can look at it all and add it up to this is bullshit. At very least, we can do that. And if you want to talk about why is it bullshit, is it because he wants to avoid war with Putin? Well, then you tell me, what would be the reason of avoiding war with Putin? Why does he want to avoid that? If he thinks that Russia is dicking us around and he just wants to avoid war, why? Because Russia's powerful? No, we spend way more than them we spend more than the rest of the world on our military.
Yeah.
Okay? Is it because they have nuclear weapons? Fair, but still, our GDP is way bigger than theirs. We can sanction the crap out of them, crush their economy. We can do all kinds of things. Russia's GDP isn't even bigger than than Belgium and the Netherlands put together. Go fuck yourself. You're nobody.
Seriously?
Nobody.
Wait, is that a real fact?
Look it up.
I'm with you. All I'm doing, and this is what my fascination is what other things could be going on. That's all I'm saying. And is the likelihood less than 1%? Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's fun to explore, right? It's also interesting to think about in a different perspective from time to time.
Yeah.
Is it tinfoil hatty? Yes. But I also think that as a country, we deserve to think that way because, well, shit. Welcome to our country. Like, the CIA in the 70s has been fucking doing all sorts of crazy ass shit.
Oh, of course they have.
You know, and it's not even just the 70s, right? Like what you just talked about in 2004 with fucking waterboarding and shit, you know? It's not out of the realm of possibility that we're going to do some crazy ass stupid shit.
Russia has an economy the size of Italy.
That is crazy. You would assume that they're huge. Russia is a huge country. You would assume just with all the natural resources they probably have.
Well, they're huge just in land mass, right?
Yeah, they have a shitload of land.
Right. What about people?
They have a shitload of people.
I don't know that they have a shitload.
Do they really though?
Do they? I don't
know about that. Not more than the United States, but they have a lot of people. Compared to other countries?
They only have 144 million.
That's pretty high compared to most countries in Europe.
You're actually right.
I'm fairly sure.
You're right. Geez, China and India can just mobilize their people and just take
It
over the
is.
world.
There is an insane amount of people in that region of the world. There is a lot of people.
That's just from light Googling, clearly, because you did that too.
It's crazy, dude.
It is crazy. It is. It just look. I think at the end of the day, what really concerns me about not just the guy on top of this administration, but this administration in general, what concerns me is the fact that they unequivocally push back on anything Russian, unequivocally. And not only that, but they unequivocally, everybody who from Trump down through his allies, at least, he has appointed some people who aren't staunch allies who have said certain things. Tillerson said certain things and got fired, but Trump just wants Mueller to be gone. He thinks Mueller should be fired. Trump allies thinks Mueller should be fired. Why can't we just let Mueller do his job? I don't understand what this weird pushback is on this. Why are you acting so goddamn guilty? Stop acting guilty. Shut up. Let him do his job.
I think Trump is convinced it is actually a witch hunt, though. I think he's actually convinced that it's an unfair witch hunt.
Why is he convinced that? Why?
Because he watches Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
He has a feedback loop of people who just tell him what he want to hear.
The leader of our country, I don't want to hear anybody tell me they think Trump's a genius. I'm sorry. If he actually listens to Fox and Friends, I don't know that he does.
We know that he does. We know for a fact.
I don't want to believe that, Chad. I don't want to believe
I'm telling you, we know for a fact that he does.
Chad,
but he unironically tweets things that they happen to be talking about.
While they're talking about it, at the moment they say it during the show.
Whatever.
Not
I'm moving past that. I'm moving past that.
Fox and Friends.
Whether it's listen, whether it's Fox and Friends or not, there is a baseline common sense about how you should act around an investigation, right? And in a lot of ways, if you act a certain way, you look really guilty. In a lot of ways, if you act a certain way, you don't look guilty. He's doing everything to make him look so guilty. Calling something a witch hunt when Mueller's a registered Republican, Rod Rosenstein, who appointed Mueller's a registered Republican.
Yeah, but
a lot of these.
You have to remember that the Republican establishment was against Trump at the beginning, bro.
Okay, fine. If you don't want me to bring that up, that's fine.
Let's talk about the
I don't want. Wait. I don't want you to not bring it up. I just
no.
You merely presenting,
and I'll adjust because you said that. You're not wrong. What I'll say is just let him do. Why can't he just let him do his job? Why does he have to call it a witch hunt? Why does he have to say it needs to be shut down?
Because he thinks it is. I think he's truly convinced that he thinks it is just a witch hunt. It's part of the witch hunt.
Fox and Friends. Yeah, you're gonna make me so upset tonight.
Well, Breitbart too.
Again, I never give Donald Trump more credit than he deserves. That's just me being real. I'm sorry, man. When you listen to this man talk, when you listen to this man explain his ideas,
dude,
I'm just being real. I do not give that man credit.
I think I'm learning that I give Trump more credit than you do, and you're making me. Do. Yeah,
I think,
man,
I truly think Trump is somebody who accidentally became president. I think he accidentally became president, and now he doesn't know
how much of an accident it was.
Yeah, in what way, Chad? I
think when he threw his hat in the ring for GOP, he kind of wanted to be president, but he more wanted to push his brand. He more wanted to stay relevant, and then he won. I know we don't give too much credit to that book that was written about Trump. I forget the guy's name. Wolf, I think.
That guy's a okay, I'm not gonna use it.
Yeah,
that guy is weak. That guy is weak at best. All right.
No, I know.
And not just because of that book. He's got a rich history of embellishment.
No, I know.
And that's why. Right.
Yeah. So. I don't give too much credit to that book, but he explains in it, obviously, allegedly, the idea was that Trump and his team didn't actually think they were going to win. They didn't actually think they have a shot. And I think there's some truth to that. Some truth to that.
Throw that book out and him out. There is credible reporting besides that corroborates that. Yes,
right.
And so
I don't know, dude. I really think he accidentally became president.
Yeah, but I would like to think any American, even if you fall into the presidency, once you become president, buck up and be the president. You know, and it blows my mind that it feels like that hasn't happened. It does. It feels.
But I feel like
he
he thinks he is being a good president. Again, when you because he tunes into Fox and Friends, he takes it very seriously, and
I'm not going to believe that.
It feeds directly into how he views reality, and I think he's very easily manipulated. Or at the very least,
does he realize that he's the leader of the free world? Does he realize that? Does he realize that he's much more powerful than Fox News? Does he realize?
Yeah.
Which is why he thinks that whatever it is that he thinks is the right thing.
Yeah,
because then why he thinks Fox... he cannot be influenced otherwise.
Well, because you got to be, if you're the mouthpiece for the GOP, Fox and Friends is always going to bend over backwards trying to make things look good, and Trump's going to go, things are going good. But I don't know. Maybe I'm chalking him up to be way more incompetent.
The last question I'll have as we wrap this up really quick, because it may be a little relates to this, but I want to get off Trump.
Fair enough.
When we see what happened last week in Pennsylvania, what is your guys' explanation for that? And to put it in context, if you didn't really pay attention, this is a district where Trump won by 20 points, and a Democrat came in and
more than 20 points. More than 20 points.
I don't know if it was that much more, but it's a significant number. So we're talking about at least a 20-point swing. How did that happen? Why did that happen? What does it say about the Trump administration? Maybe it doesn't say anything. You know,
it's buyer's remorse.
You think so?
I feel like Trump won. I mean, the fact that he won is crazy, but that means there were a lot of people who existed in the middle that leaned for Trump because they believed for a moment that he was the guy. And there are a lot of people who have that power, that swing vote, that are now saying we should not have put Trump into office.
I believe that, but I don't know that really explains the 20-point swing. I think you add that into the fact that Democrats will crawl over broken glass to vote right now because they hate so much.
That's definitely a factor as well. The pushback against just a bad administration.
Right.
I think that's actually the singular largest factor. I think the people who did come out to vote for Trump did not come out to vote for anybody.
I think you're wrong, dude.
Well, and Caleb, I would push back. There was literally a video I saw of someone who was phone banking for Connor Lamb, the Democrat, who admitted she voted for Trump. She loved Trump. She would vote for Trump again, and she was still phone banking for Connor Lamb. That's crazy. And she admitted she'd vote for Trump again in 2020.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Still phone banking for Connor.
All right,
Lamb.
So why did she like Connor Lamb and not?
But hold on, Cyril. Sure. One exception to the rule doesn't make the rule, right?
I got you, but that
what I'm saying is
so out there that's maybe that there's a lot of people under her that are saying or is what Chad's saying. So go ahead.
No, I think the bulk of it was more people who. I don't know if anyone has the ability to do this. Yeah, pull these. I don't know if anyone has the ability to do this, but look at how many registered Republicans voted for president, and then look at how many registered Republicans came out to vote for this election, and same thing with Democrats. I think you'll find that more people who were against Trump that just didn't vote under the assumption that Hillary was going to win anyway, made sure they came out to vote this time, and vice versa didn't happen the other way. Those who were for this administration did not come out and vote for the same reason. Like, I don't really give a fuck. I'll shit anyway. You know what I mean? That's what I would argue. It has nothing to do with. Well, I mean, it does have everything to do with how the administration is, but I don't think it's the same people necessarily every time. I think the bulk of the caucus that voted a different way were people that didn't even vote in the first election to begin with. See what I'm saying?
And the numbers, not 100%, but the numbers do corroborate with what you're saying. So unfortunately, in 2016, there was no Democrat that ran against the Republican. We can't compare those numbers.
Right.
It was only a Republican running. Literally nobody ran against him. If we want to reach back to the last time a Democrat ran against a Republican in that district, it was 2012, which is also an election year. And in 2012, 338,000 people voted, 216 for the Republican, 122 for the Democrat. In the special election, only 228,000 voted, 113 for both the Democrat and the Republican. So that's a huge numbers difference. But what I will push back on you also on that is we're talking about a special election. So when we talk about special elections, they usually lean towards an older crowd. They usually lean towards a Republican crowd. And the fact that all this tells me is that people who don't like the president will literally crawl across hot coals to vote against him. And that is what's going to drive 2018 to I'm going to say it right now. I 100% know that the Democrats will take back the House of Representatives this year. And it's because of the enthusiasm and the fact that they will literally crawl across coals to vote because they hate Trump. And Dad has said this to me plenty of times. Why did he vote Trump? Not because he liked Trump, but because he wanted something different. And maybe the different was good. Maybe it was real terrible. And his statement is, if it's real terrible, guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a revolt against it in a good way. And we're seeing it happen.
I don't know.
Do I think that Democrats are a good thing? No. Do I think that anything against Trump is a good thing? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So
anything that less enables Trump, I think, is probably a good thing.
Yes. And I also think, Caleb, and I don't know people in Pennsylvania 18. I can't put my finger on someone who voted Trump, but also voted Democrat this time. I think there's a lot of people who do have buyer's remorse, man.
I'm not saying they don't. Hold on. I'm not saying they don't.
Sure.
All I'm saying, though, is that if we look at it, and I would have to hear the numbers again of what you said, but it sounds like to me more likely that the people who did vote for Trump didn't even come out to vote for this election to begin with.
Right.
Those who came out who didn't vote for Hillary made fucking sure they came out to vote here.
Right.
Right. And that is buyer's remorse. I just don't think it's buyer's remorse for those who voted for Trump necessarily. I think it's buyer's remorse for those who collectively feel, well, I didn't come out and vote because I just assumed that Trump wouldn't have won anyway.
That's another. Yeah, that's another.
To me, that's the bigger factor here. In any other election, I don't think that's the case, except for this one.
Yeah, and for me, at the end of the day, we can debate that for days and days and days. But for me, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we debate about that. The Democrats will have the House of Representatives this year, 100%. I would bet my life on it.
I agree,
and it's because of that.
At the same time, I would have bet my life that Trump would have never been president.
No, I wouldn't have. I don't know why you would have. I watched 538. They're not HuffPost that said 99% Hillary wins. They're not New York Times that says 95% Hillary wins. They're not stupid. They actually look at polls. And by the way, the polls weren't wrong. The average of the polls weren't wrong. It makes me sick when people say that. They weren't. They were off by well within the margin of error.
I don't think the polls were wrong. I think it was those who were trying to explain the polls were wrong.
Correct. That is 100%
the explanation of the numbers, the analytics,
true.
the actual.
I had a sneaking suspicion that Trump might take it home. I mean, nobody expected the UK to pull out of the EU, and then, oops, they did.
538 had Trump at 39 to 40% chance to win the election. That's not zero. That's a solid chance.
Yeah.
Like, who out there is going to tell you 60-40, oh, that's terrible, you're never going to win? Nobody, because that's stupid. Like,
I think that everyone that was reporting that Hillary was basically gonna win, I think completely underestimated the fact that I feel like a lot of the swing votes that voted for Trump were more along the lines of votes for not Hillary. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think
that was my vote, and my vote went to Johnson.
Right.
So did mine. Not only do I think
I wrote in
Bernie. Oh,
did
Jesus Christ. What are you, a communist?
I did, yeah.
Not only do I think that
communist.
Not only do I think that what do you say? I know Trump heads.
You said, what are you, a communist?
I know Trump heads will tell me, well, that's still not the majority of chances and he won. Look at that. Fuck you. Hang on. He didn't win the popular vote. So I don't know that 60-40 was necessarily the wrong percentage to put on it. He literally lost the popular vote.
So don't.
Yes, I agree with that. If we just want to talk W's and L's, okay, you're not wrong. But how about we get nuanced? How about we really?
We're not good at that as Americans.
As Americans, we're not. As us three of us, we are. But yeah, as Americans, we're not. So
even the three of us aren't very good at nuanced opinions sometimes.
Oh, we're better than most. I just would challenge that person to he didn't win he actually didn't win the popular vote. Not that it was so far apart, but those things matter. I don't know, man. Those things
I
definitely
think what matters more when we talk about that is the fact that so many people didn't vote anyway.
Yeah.
Still, again, for the umpteenth time.
And
Dude,
also, look at this
what did we
special
get?
election last week.
What did we get?
The
A
Republican
50%
lost
turnout?
by about 600 votes. The Libertarian got about 1,400 votes. Gotti.
I cannot
Gotti.
believe. Look at how close that margin was. How are we so evenly divided in this country? It always blows my mind how elections are.
Don't
are
misconstrue
so...
that. Don't misconstrue that. That's a Republican district. That's a Republican district. A tie is not an even divide.
Well, you just have to look at presidential elections. Just look at the last couple presidential elections. They always come within such a close margin.
But hold on. Well, hold on.
Fair.
If most people, this is what I would argue. If most people feel like you only have two options, you're 50-50 to start with, right?
Yep.
What would it be like if people really felt like they had other options? Do you really think we would be that close?
No, I don't think so.
Neither do I.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm always amazed at how evenly we end up splitting.
Well, what I'm saying though is that if when you have only two options, you're starting from 50-50 to begin with. I don't know if that's the best.
Yeah, but that doesn't
necessarily represent the division.
Sure.
I'm not saying we're not divided. I'm saying I don't think that's the best way to represent it.
Yeah.
Because if you have two choices to begin with, yes or no, it's you're already starting at 50-50. But if you have five choices,
and it's hard, and to your point, it's hard to drive away from that 50-50. I think I agree. I do. So.
Oh.
So.
All right, we're gonna end this one for now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Appreciate the time, boys. I'm gonna be on Discord for a few more minutes.
Chad, what do you got to do tomorrow?
If you're asking me about PUBG,